Show the only public forum. Cool. Okay, kia ora everybody. Welcome to Buller District Council 27th September 2023. Before we open the formal part of the meeting, we have a public forum and we have one member of the public who's an opportunity to speak to us for 5 minutes. So Sue Gray, welcome to. You can sit or stand here. Just we have got 2 members on Zoom, so it's a bit awkward. The room is always a little bit awkward.
Thank you very much for the invitation to speak to the council today. My name's Sue Gray. I'm one of the candidates for the West Coast Tasman electorate for the upcoming election. And my interest is in promoting basically community, local people making decisions for local communities, connection with each other and sort of self-sufficiency and resiliency and that sort of thing. And I just really wanted to congratulate you what you're doing here. I'm super impressed that I can walk into your building. I get a nice welcome. I get given a copy of the agenda to look at. And I have to say that is not something that happens all around the country. I am a lawyer by background, so I do appear at a lot of councils, often Nelson and Tasman councils particularly. So really it's just to say hello and thank you for the job you're doing. It's a hard job standing up and representing people, and I'm sure you get a whole lot of different views with different people, not always agreeing with each other. And I know you probably don't often get too many thanks either. So that's all I'm here for, just to say thank you all and to introduce myself. And in the event that I am elected, you know who I am now. I'm sure you'll be able to find me, and I'm here to work with as many different people as I can, as many different stakeholders, to try and make our communities as strong and resilient as we possibly can. So thank you all.
So, thank you. So we do offer the opportunity for councillors to ask any questions. There are any?
I should just say I'm the co-leader of the Freedoms New Zealand, or actually Outdoors and Freedom Party, but we're under what's called the umbrella of Freedoms New Zealand, where we've tried to get some of the smaller parties working together, even though we've got quite different views on some things, trying to find ways that different people can work together. So if you're looking for me, that's why I am.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
No one else wanting to speak in public forum? Nope. Okay, thank you very much for that. So we'll move to I'll move to open the meeting proper at 3:33. So you did very well there, Sue. So we commence the formal meeting of Buller District Council at 3:33, Wednesday the 27th of September 2023. Are there any apologies for today's meeting? I will just note Councillor Nailon and Webb are attending on Zoom. Any apologies? I think everyone else is here. So I move there are none to note. Seconded, Councillor Farlett. All in favour? Any against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 2. Are there any matters on today's agenda for which members wish to declare a financial or non-financial interest? Nothing heard or seen online, so I move that there are no members' interests to record. Seconded, Councillor Graff. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Through to Council's confirmation of previous minutes, and I will just quickly pull that up. The minutes from our meeting held 30th of August 2023. Are there any matters of correction for those minutes, please? Councillor Howard.
And 9.4, the Dolomite point, it shouldn't be business centre, it should be experience centre.
Experience centre, should it? Perfect, thank you.
Noted that correction. Any other corrections required to the minutes? 30th of August. Nothing heard. Somebody like to move those? Move Deputy Mayor Basher. Seconded Councillor Howard with that one minor correction. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 4, action point report. Chief Executive Gilling, do you have anything to update us on in that?
Thank you, Chair. Look, we've got an update on 3 Three Waters, that will be a report brought back to the next council, and that's just due to where staff have prioritised their time at the moment going through and completing our annual report audit. In terms of an update, we were asked to bring back a bit of an update on the Waimangaroa Hall. And so there are a couple of updates there, and we'll just keep updating this council as we progress through that. And also note the Unikaiki lease action point. So the team are happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions, councillors? I'll go with Councillor Weston.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, the change in government alter that Three Waters thing?
I've touched on it in my CEO report, and it's uncertain at this stage what the change looks like. I certainly know that the NTU, or the National Transition Unit, are working on Plan A, and until there is a Plan B, it really depends on the election. So can't really answer that at this stage until we know the outcome of the election and we hear from the government of the day as to what their plan is.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Reedy was next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just regarding, I had a note that I didn't mention it last month, but I had a note regarding Stafford. Sorry, not Stafford Street, Roebuck Street, heavy trade use. And my understanding was there's going to be a report back at some stage. Not a priority, obviously, at the moment, but given other factors, but it's just not on the list, and I just want to know what's happening.
Okay, just yep.
Yes, I can answer that briefly, and then might pass to Mike Duff. We are working on it. We were hoping to bring a plan back to this meeting, but we've been delayed for a few critical reasons. Mike, can you identify what those reasons are?
Through the chair, essentially the report that was due for September is now being deferred to November. The reason for the delay is we want to seek some legal advice about the prospect of closure or any material changes to Roebuck Street for heavy vehicles. That's the first element we want to get correct. And the other part is just some staffing and resource priorities in the transport portfolio as we try to backfill some recent departures. So we're aiming now for the November meeting.
Will we add that to the action point list, though? Do you want to see that added as an action?
I believe it should, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Okay, happy to do that. So let's add an action point around Roebuck Street heavy traffic update with a completion date required by November council meeting. Who is next? Councillor Sampson.
Number 22, the Unikaiki, that's all good, and it's a program of works and the design is yet to be done. So will that come back to council, the design and the costings before it goes out to tender? Or we will see that we will be making the decision on the tender for that? Yes.
Yes, that would be the case.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Councillor Naylon.
Yeah, just on that same one, Mr. Mayor. My understanding was that we were looking for what ratepayer funding had gone into that, into the camp. Is that going to be covered under the report on the lease, or should that be a separate item?
I think if we can aim to bring those items both back in the same report, that might be the right thing to do. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you.
So we're comfortable that's covered in that action point? Or will be?
Will be. I think if we will note to update that action point, will also be reflected in the minutes, I believe, as well.
Okay. Any other questions on the action points? This? Okay, with those updates, somebody like to move? We received that. Councillor Weston, seconded Councillor Farlett. Any other discussion on that? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, agenda item 5 is the proposed Chief Executive Officer KPIs for the financial year we were in. These are largely based on the ones we agreed with previous acting CE Town Road. And at that time, we noted that we needed to agree those with an incoming CE when we secured one. And so that discussion has been had with Steve, and what you see in front of you is what we've agreed. Myself and Deputy Mayor Basher have agreed with Chief Executive Gibbling for the performance indicators for this current year while he's here. So I'll open that up for questions and discussion. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll talk about first one, statutory duties. Two items there. One talks about issues raised by Audit New Zealand. We've now got Ernst & Young as the appointed auditors, not Audit New Zealand, although there could be some still outstanding from the 21-22 audit. I don't know. So we need to change that from Audit New Zealand or raised by appointed auditor. The appointed auditor would be better.
Yep.
The other thing is very, for me, Steve started on August the 19th. He's got no way of being able to secure an unqualified audit report. What has been done has been done. I don't believe he's in a position for 22-23 to be able to ensure or assure us that we can get an unqualified audit report. So I disagree with that particular one.
So we had a discussion with Steve on that and acknowledged that obviously that's all stuff that's happened prior to his arrival.
Yes.
Our understanding and our mutual agreement on that is around actioning any recommendations that flow from. So which will be up to the current CE to make sure that they're closed off or followed up. So the list of management recommendations that the auditor normally give.
Now, it does say that an unqualified audit report is received. Now, it's a big difference between an unqualified audit report and then the management letter that comes out subsequent. So a management letter can come out and you still get a unqualified audit report. With the events that are going on at the moment, we don't know. I mean, it's all secret at the moment, obviously, but unqualified audit report, if Steve's happy with it, I'll go along with it, but it places unfair pressure on a person who's got no control over that first part. That's what I'm referring to. It's the first part, unqualified audit report.
Do you want to comment on this, Steve?
Yeah, look, thank you, Councillor, through your chair. Look, that was certainly a discussion that we had between the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor and myself. And it is my job as a CE now to push forward with an unqualified audit as far as possible, recognising, as you say, that I've turned up last month. I'm comfortable with this KPI, and I have to be able to explain if there is if there's a qualified audit, I have to basically be able to say to you why. So, look, I'm happy with this as it stands. Thank you.
Cool. Is there anything else in the list?
I had to move.
Okay, we'll just note that, Councillor.
Yeah, well, I have the same concern, and I would like to reword it. But if that's where it sits. And the other one was the staff satisfaction in 2025, the survey with a minimum of 70% response. I would like a time frame of at least staff that from 70% of staff that have been there for 12 months, rather than, we have a turnover in staff and somebody's only been there 3 months. I don't know that they would be really well equipped to do a staff satisfaction. So have a minimum time the staff have been employed. I would feel that it's a more comprehensive or a fairer report.
Do you comment on that?
Yeah, look, that might be a useful point we can note in the commissioning of our staff engagement survey. I don't know if we do ask the question of the length of service, but certainly I can take that point up. We are talking with the team at the moment because we will be looking at the first engagement survey to go out next month, and so I can certainly add that question in to be able to identify that.
Okay.
Any other questions on the KPIs? Okay, so moved, Councillor Reedy is seconded. Deputy Mayor Bashir, was it? Okay. Graham, you didn't have anything? I see you're off mute.
No, just a small point to note that the minimum of 70% was only in the response rate, not the responses. So
Yeah. It was just to ensure there was reasonable capture of a decent sample size from the building. Okay, moved Councillor Reedy, seconded Deputy Mayor Bashir. Let me just quickly go back. We're going to go back to the recommendations. So there are three. Are you moving all three, Councillor Reedy?
I'm moving all three, thank you.
Yeah, are you seconding all three? Cool. Okay, so one is that Council receives a report proposed Chief Executive Officer Key Performance Indicators for financial year 23-24. And two, that Council notes that these proposed key performance indicators for financial year 23-24 have been presented and agreed with the Chief Executive Officer. Three, Council adopts the proposed key performance indicators for the financial year 23-24. Moved, Councillor Reedy, seconded Deputy Mayor Bashir. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And as has been our standard practice, myself and Deputy Mayor Bashir meet weekly with the CE, but once a month. Those meetings include an update on progress against the KPIs, and a quarterly report comes back to council, to full council, with an update on the KPIs. So we get a sort of a verbal update as we're going, but a formal process back to council quarterly. That's the deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're happy with that? Cool. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6. This is largely procedural to just make sure that we're all formally appointed as proxies for the upcoming AGM of our holdings company, CCO. Take that report as read unless there's anything, questions from anyone. Councillor Naylor.
yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I thought in the past the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, we had two proxy voters always at the AGM, not one and one in, if you're absent. It was always two voting.
Okay, is Douglas isn't here. Do we have any?
Can't comment on that, but it might be something that we can, it does materially affect the recommendation.
So rather than being or, it would be and?
Yes, because
Yeah, I'd move it to and.
Yeah, we do have to have a mover and seconder. Yeah. True. Okay.
so therefore it has to be two.
Yeah. I agree. Unless someone's got something else to add to that. So the recommendation would change to that the Mayor, Jamie Pine, and the Deputy Mayor, Andrew Bashir, the rest stays the same. You got that?
July the Wednesday.
Oh, hang on. Maybe we should nominate a third reserve. Let's do that. It's just so if someone is sick or unable to make it, myself or deputy, this. And basically, the critical thing is there are two nominated representatives from the shareholder to represent council, represent the shareholder at the AGM. Councillor Howard, are you okay to be that third person? And it'll only be, everyone's allowed to attend, but it would only be voting if myself or Deputy Bashir were unavailable. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay.
We need to move that.
We'll just change the recommendation so that Mayor Jamie Klein and Deputy Mayor Andrew Basher be appointed as the proxy vote for council at the 2023 annual general meeting for Buller Holdings Limited and its subsidiaries. And Councillor Joe Howard is the reserve substitute, additional, what's the word? Help me out. Substitute in the event of an absence of the mayor or deputy mayor.
I'm pretty sure, Mr. Mayor, at the meeting you need a mover and a seconder. That's why you need two.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
And it's subsidiaries and councillor Joe Howard as the additional substitute in the event of the absence of the mayor or deputy mayor.
Yep. Okay, everyone comfortable with that? Somebody would like to move that other than those people? Councillor Weston, seconded. Councillor O'Keefe. Everyone understand what we're moving and seconding there? Okay, all those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Tidy that up. Okay, agenda item 7, Chief Executive Officer's report. So there's 3 recommendations there. I'll now hand over to Chief Executive to talk us through it.
Thank you, Chair. Look, just probably touch on a couple of key points that are relevant in this report, and then happy to take questions. But I guess in the last period of time, we've certainly kicked off our long-term planning, and this is our key planning and budgeting document for the next 10 years. And so, as part of our engagement process, we have certainly started that workshop process with councillors, but we are looking forward in the coming month to also starting some pre-engagement with our community, especially on things like are our community outcomes still fit for purpose. And this work will help and guide us as we finalise the draft consultation material that will be ready in March next year to go out to the community to undertake that long-term plan process. And I guess our staff, on behalf of staff, we've appreciated the input and the guidance we've received thus far. In terms of, I guess, also celebrating some good wins, the achievement of the tourism infrastructure funding that's come into the community as another good win for this council and that community or those communities. And I guess touching on that, as well as how we do our work, obviously the PMO review is of some interest at the moment, and I can advise that a number of meetings and interviews have been undertaken over this past period of time, both with staff and with funders, and we've now received the first draft report and I'm looking through those findings at the moment, and we expect to be on track to produce that final report for early October. The key recommendation here to recommendation 2 and related to that recommendation 3 is that also note that we've got an agreement with DIA for the funding for the Westport Flood Resilience Program. And I've signed that and we're seeking your endorsement today that was appropriate. However, what we're also noting is that as part of that process, we are looking at our delegations policy, and we will be bringing that back to Risk and Audit Committee in the coming month to ensure that our delegations policy reflects the ways in which we are working. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as a note that you will get a chance to look at our delegations policy and provide us with our updated draft from our team to make sure that that delegation policy still reflects your expectation. But otherwise, happy to take questions on my report.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? Councillor Sampson?
Just on the delegation policy, when can we expect that?
At this stage, Councillor Sampson, I'm looking at trying to bring that back to the October Risk and Audit committee. Obviously, as you know, the team that will be doing that are a financial team, and they'll be supporting me in pulling that together. And there may be, I guess, depending on our annual audit and some of the questions that we get from our appointed auditors, we might have to prioritise that. So at latest November, but my intention at this stage is to aim for October.
And the question that I posed a month ago, where is that one? Suspension, yeah.
The procurement policy.
No, the suspension of the delegation policy.
Yes, that will be coming back as well to risk and audit.
So the key issue with that's been highlighted by this particular sign-off is the delegations policy is largely silent on inbound non-ratepayer revenue. It doesn't really speak to it at all. So some of the grant funding and things that don't involve ratepayer funding, there's no mention of that scenario in delegations. So that is why effectively there's no mechanism to actually bring these grant funds through from a delegations point of view, because delegations are set up around expenditure and ratepayer funding.
And that's what I'm going to see, the present policy. So if I could see the present policy sooner rather than later.
Councillor Weston and then Reedy.
Thanks, Mayor. I see Carter's Beach car park upgrade. Looking at putting a power cable between the hall and the toilets at this stage. Is there any idea where that car park is going to go?
Look, I think we could take that offline, Councillor, and I could provide you some advice through the team fairly quickly, if I can take that on with you afterwards.
Yep.
Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Delegations policy, current policy is actually on the website. I'll send this into a copy. I agree that it doesn't really bring in external funding like a number of other councils do. They actually mention, and so Steve's nodding his head. And my concern is that there was talk about, in fact, there was a resolution somewhere about suspension of financial delegations, and I would have thought being something which was quite high profile, that it would be seen as someone's top drawer. It should be readily available. So I've done a lot of research, a lot of digging at the moment, haven't come across anything to tell me that the delegations were suspended and the reasons why. So I believe it is quite, I take what Councillor Sampson's saying. For me, it's quite a genuine request, and is very, very high in the priority list.
Yeah.
So I take on board what Steve's saying. That's okay. Yeah. I'm relaxed at the moment. I'll send it to all the councillors, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Yeah. So from memory, I don't know about the term suspension, but the treatment of the delegations policy was in the terms of reference of the projects and partnership group, and that was I think that is what we're referring to around external funding, and that was around there was quite a lot of commentary in there around that group being set up to act with haste and what have you in response to the external funding and timelines that the then Crown Infrastructure and PGF and whatever we're putting on in terms of timelines and project delivery. So it was in the terms of reference of the original projects in partnership, which would predate this council. I think it goes back to probably 2019, 2020, something like that.
So actually, we've got two delegation policies, one for council delegation and the other in terms of reference.
No, in terms of reference, so just to be really clear, it didn't set aside the need for the delegations policy intent to be followed. So it required the team to be, so rather than the onerous steps of, which takes several months for things to come through and come to this table, those externally funded things, the team that were handling the procurement and the like needed to give cognizance of the rules, but they were able to use those tools that were in the delegations and procurement toolkit, and they had to make sure they kept records and be aware that they would be audited at any time against those and the like. So it wasn't actually setting aside or changing the rules, it was just noting that the projects and partnership needed to work under a more nimble model than what we would through an annual plan or LTP scenario. And because it wasn't council funding, it was external at that time. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I'm happy to move on at the moment, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Just, I do recall you mentioned before about the BIP, and I believe Mike Duff may have, through the chair, may have prepared that paper, but maybe I think it was about August 2020, but I need to go back and check on that, but I'm happy to move on now.
Yeah, cool. Councillor Naylon, did you have?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. On page 31, we're talking a little bit about your 2023-24 rates, and we're going to develop communication to educate the public. It's a bit of a derogatory term. I think inform would be a much better term.
That was on a little bit about you.
Pardon?
Mayor, a little bit about you.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, no, noted, Councillor. Thank you. And apologies.
Oh, I see. Yes. Anything else, councillors, from CE reports? Okay, we have 3 recommendations. See if anyone wish to move them. Councillor Howard, you want to move all 3? Seconded, Councillor Farlett. So the council receives the report, Chief Executive Officer's report. The council endorsed the CEO action in signing the Westport Flood Resilience Agreement with DIA, noting the following: A, agreed purposes for the fund, and B, no requirement of funding from the Buller District Council. 3, that the council note that the delegations policy is currently under review, and the review aspect will be within the scope of revenue aspect, beg your pardon, will be within the scope of the review. I'll read that again. 3, that the council note that the delegations policy is under review and the revenue aspect will be within the scope of that review. Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The one you've all been waiting for, the Mayor's report. Agenda item 8. I will largely take that as read, I think. Great to see councillors Howard and Webb attending their RMA training, and that's a good asset for council to have councillors coming through that have that in-house expertise. We'll talk a little bit about the long-term plan. Mayor's Task Force for Jobs is off to a pretty strong start. Some comments here from the team. And the rest is really likely just what I've been up to. Don't have any other particular update. Oh, I guess in the LGNZ and sort of late breaking news, I guess, well, not breaking news, but this week, LGNZ CEO Susan Freeman-Green and Zone, I want to say 3, Chairman Nia Andy, gosh, it's just gone out of my head, from Wairoa was with me on a roadshow on the West Coast, travelled up from Hokitika and Grey and ended up here. So just to catch up with them on the work of LGNZ, and spoke a bit about this hui, which is around trying to come up with a consensus view of local government in terms of the recommendations from the Future for Local Government review panel, and see if there's an agreed consensus of local government group generally that we can put in front of the government of the day when that's established post the general election. So that's the work there. There was we worked through the 17 recommendations, and they're going to collate a whole lot of information that was, I think it's 3,500 pieces of information gathered at that all-day hui of various mayors and chief executives, and they're going to collate that into a second hui in November, and yeah, just try to work on that consensus building on the key themes through that. Other than that, any other questions from the Mayor's report? Councillor Reid.
Very quickly, Mr. Mayor, the 22.9 million Westport flood resilience, and of that 2.93 is recorded on here as being for Westport flood resilience. Is that the 2.93? Is that under the guidance or the management of the steering group, or that to come back to here? Because my understanding was based on when we met with the DIA people, the 2.93 was specifically for Westport and outside the scope of the steering group. In other words, we could do what we wanted to do with it, and I would do recording sitting where you are now, to DIA over there. And it was essentially what we felt we needed to do with that money. Here I'm seeing that the 2.93 is under the scope or management of the steering group. Can I just have some?
Yeah, no, so it is in scope of the steering group. It's not to do with what we want to do with. So the 2.93 captures the master planning work. So that's in relation to the previous resolution we just approved with. That's the funding. This is in relation to the funding Chief Executive signed off in the last, that we just approved in the last agenda item. So that's the master planning work and the some of the civil defence work. And then there's the roughly 2 million of adaptation funding, that's what they've called it, that will need to be determined via the steering group and the technical advisory groups that feed into that, as to what that is best deployed, or how that is best deployed. But as with everything that goes through the steering group, the decision making sits with the elected council. So the regional council matters go back to regional council, and the Buller District Council matters will come back here.
So it was not my recollection, but I'm happy to park it for now.
Yeah. What kind of things did you think the 2 million?
The original paper that went out by the Kawatere business case, I believe, was called by June 22. It wasn't a master plan as such. It was there's been discussion about it in the public. It was mainly a starting point. It wasn't in concrete. When we had the two DIA people there, I sat over there, you were there, and the comment was made to say, that is for you. I remember you asking, we can do what we want with it, and the comment was from, I can't remember the guy's name, was yes, and one of them was to do with raising the floor limits on some houses. That wasn't from memory in the master plan. It's something that's come out since. So all I'm asking was where in the brief, the DIA, is the extra 2.93 under the governance, if you like, the direction and management of the steering group. I still believe Ron's here, but if I'm wrong, that could be corrected.
No, you're wrong. It's all part of the original 22.9 million. So remembering the original business case included something like 10 million for adaptation funding, which was, potentially, again, not necessarily a portion for a particular purpose. It was a bit of a placeholder as to, was that for property buyouts, was that for other schemes we could create around lifting houses or what have you. When the Prime Minister made his announcement, that figure was reduced to $2 million, and they were very explicit in that is not to be used for property buyouts. So that leaves on the table us, when I said we can do what we like with it, is we need to formulate a plan as to whether that is some form of assistance to property owners for very localised protection for the odd house that's not protected, for instance. It may be for things like temporary flood barriers that could be kept in hand for protecting parts of town in worst case scenarios, that kind of thing. So what that is not been determined, but it would be based on the best use of that money from the technical advice that comes through. I would think initially the steering group, and then, but ultimately back to this council. Yeah. So it's going to be as transparent as it can be. I suspect, and I suppose I am sharing opinion here, is that there'll be opportunities that will come out of as the protection moves into preliminary and final design. I think that will start informing some opportunities where that money could be deployed, either at property level or more of a larger scheme level. But we simply don't know yet. But the master planning side of it is underway and very live. Any other questions on the mayor's report? Okay, easy. So 2 recommendations: to receive the report for discussion and information, and receive the inwards and outwards correspondence, provide direction on any responses that you wish me to make. You'd like to move that way? Move Deputy Mayor Basher. Seconded Councillor Fowler. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, committee chairs. Agenda item 9 is verbal updates from our committee chairs. So I will work our way down the list, going first to Councillor Webb, chairing the Unconfirmed Community Board.
No update from me, just we haven't had a meeting since our last council meeting. Our next meeting's next Tuesday, 5 o'clock at the St John's room in Reefton. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Linda. Councillor Webb. Ned? No update from Martin Broadway. Councillor Naylon, regulatory and hearings. Thank you. Goodbye. Councillor Naylon.
Mine, okay. Regulatory hearings. We've had ex-councillor Roach and I have done 2 hearings since the last council meeting. We did a small mining consent on the Caroline Terrace. So the decision on that one's been released. And then on the 15th of September, we did a 21 lot subdivision between Larson Street and Omau on the cliff tops there. And we're looking to close that hearing probably later this evening or tomorrow morning. And then we'll have the 15 working days to get that decision out. And just by way of, you mentioned earlier about Councillor Webb and Councillor Howard, I'm also 2/3 of the way through my recertification for my chair's certificate. So I've done the pre-course, done the course online, and just need to finish the post-course assignment. And hopefully I'll have another 5 years for chairperson's ticket. In terms of the solid waste hearing that's coming up on the 11th of October, just remind everybody that your role that day is to listen to the submitters, and the questions are to clarify their submission. So we won't be looking to get into any debate with any submitters on that day. And then we'll need to do a sort of an issues list following the hearings, because the consideration of all those submissions will take place at the following council meeting in October. So I guess I probably need to seek some advice on it, but normally in a hearing, in a planning hearing, if you don't hear all the submitters, then you can't be involved in the final decision. So we just need to follow up. Perhaps Steve can seek some advice on that. But that's generally what happens in terms of hearings. So probably if you want to be in the final decision, you probably need to be there to hear all those submitters on the 11th. And just remember, if you have any conflicts of interest, then I probably need to hear about those prior to the start of that day, so we can see how we deal with them. And that means if you've made any public statements about the waste, solid waste, or you've put in a submission yourself, you just need to let me know, and then we can look at how we might deal with that conflict of interest. So that's me.
Well, thank you, Graham. Apologies, I wasn't aware you'd been doing some study as well. But that's excellent. That's all good. Okay, Councillor Howard, community environment.
Just a reminder to everyone that there's a number of funding applications open at the moment. We've got the community grants, creative communities, revitalisation fund. It's 2nd of October now due to close. And it's really good to see that there's a community development officer being advertised at the moment. I believe that closes soon too, and I think that'll be really invaluable with their engagement with the community.
So thank you. Any questions for Councillor Howard? Apologies, I didn't mean to ask any questions for Councillor Naylon, if there was any. No, okay. TTPP, Councillor Naylon, have you got any updates on that? We haven't had a meeting, have we?
I have nothing on that.
It's all there. Likewise for joint committee, Councillor Eadie, nothing that you're aware of?
If I may, please, Mr. Mayor, there has been nothing, but I'm just wondering, there was a comment about why we haven't met for a while, right? But I think I heard something there on the regional. Are you aware of any reason why we haven't met?
No.
Who leads this? RC is a regional.
Yes. It doesn't matter though that I think it would be a courtesy of the steering group to provide an update to the rating district joint committee, I think, of progress, because I think they were, although they're not really a decision maker on any of the steering group work, the eventual finished product, if you like, will become a matter for the rating district in terms of setting a rating sheet and maintain it and the like. So I'll raise that. We're meeting with the steering group tomorrow, so if we have time, we will raise that as a point, because I think it is worth keeping everyone in the same loop there. Any questions on that? Nope. Okay, health localities, Councillor Naylon.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
And regional transport, Councillor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Naylon. Yep.
Through the chair.
Yes.
The health localities project, can I just be reminded of what exactly it is? Is it to do with what we currently have, or is the delegation down from central government? Just have a refresher on that, please.
Can you give us a refresher, Councillor Naylon?
So the localities is about the future of health, primary health care. So it's not about secondary health care, but obviously, the way the health system is at the moment, we're looking at trying to improve, if you like, the current situation, mainly because we've got a grant from government that we're able to spend in the next few months about, further enhancing existing services or offering services that may not be currently offered. But we're not going to be able to materialise GPs or nurses out of thin air or anything like that. So mainly about the future, but we have got that little grant from Bode Health that we can spend on current health issues here. But it isn't going to fix the diabolical situation that we've got in Bulla in terms of health services at the moment. But I have talked to the chair of the PHO, because part of our vision statement is that we're looking after the health of people on the West Coast, and certainly the current situation is pretty unhealthy in terms of services that are currently being offered or not offered.
Thank you. Councillor Sampson.
Through the chair, Graham, you're talking about some money being spent, and it's a lot of talk fest going on. But so any of the surplus money, where do you actually see it being spent? In vouchers or paying for transport, because in each of those locality meetings that they went around, distance and getting to hospitals or services was the number one. And I'm just sort of wondering if you've got money there, where and how is it going to be sort of implemented to the likes of past and Carolina and in between?
There's a range of things being talked about, and that certainly has been raised. The cost of people getting to services. So we just need to see whether that fits the criteria that came with the money, and that's just going to take a little bit of time to work its way through. But certainly that's a problem that's been well recognised. And in terms of new services being offered, and especially in mental health and wellbeing through the PHO, I've emphasised that normally they'll get so much full-time equivalent allocation, and so Buller gets its allocation. But of course, there's always that 90 minutes travel each way from Greymouth if the service has been provided from Greymouth, and Reefton's a bit the same. We've got an hour travel, so that comes off our allocation, if you like. So if we get a 0.2 allocation, suddenly 0.1 of it's queued up with the travel time. So what I've asked from now on, when that allocation comes, that the travel time is actually allocated over the whole population, so that Greymouth actually loses a bit of face-to-face service, because they're subsidising some of the travel costs to Buller and to South Westland.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Naylor. Okay, moving on to Regional Transport Committee, Councillor O'Keefe.
Just had a bit of a chat with Mike off the back of our speed management draft, and there's been no meeting set. It's been radio silence really from the regional council on to when our next meeting was meant to be quite urgent, but haven't heard anything back, so nothing to report there. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Weston. Road safety.
Yeah, part of the road safety committee. We had a bikers brunch which was organised by ACC last Saturday at the Epic Centre, a great spot. About 29 people through, and it went through all your checklists of how to make your bike safe, and all your checking your oil chain and stuff like that, and all that sort of thing. And there's another one on the 14th of October in Okateka, exactly the same scenario. So they had a bit of trouble getting a mechanic to come in, so Robert Manning came in and checked everyone's bikes and made sure they were all up to speed, up to scratch. So he did a really fantastic job. So it was very successful. So and there's a Ride Forever gold and silver skills course in Westport next Monday and Tuesday. I think what's it? Tuesday. Yeah. So if anyone's keen on updating their skills for their motorbike riding.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, no questions on any of that. Rightio, we have a recommendation there that we receive those verbal updates from those chairs and council representatives. Information moved Councillor Farlett, seconded Councillor Weston. All those in favour? Any against? It's carried unanimously. Right, agenda item 10 is a recommendation to move into public excluded. Actually, just before we do, response to public forum. Did we get an address email? We didn't.
No, but I can find one. I'm sure I'll be able to.
Yep. I think that'll just be a thank you for acknowledging the opportunity. Nothing anyone else wants to add to that? Oh, okay, thank you. Right, so agenda item 10 is a report to move into public excluded for the following reasons. An update on the Project Management Office to maintain the effective conduct of public affairs through the protection of such members, officers, employees and persons from improper pressure or harassment. I will move that way. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, councillor O'Keefe. I'll open it for discussion. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Thanks. Yep. That was unanimous. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Sorry.